Hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of your Remembrance Day and Veterans Week ceremonies. I'm Captain Shirley Wang and a member of Canadian Forces Ammunition Depot Angus in the Canadian Armed Forces. I am a logistic officer. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces 3 years ago. I was posted to Canadian Forces Base Shiloh in Manitoba after basic training. I worked in logistic branch as an administration officer and completed my logistic officer training. I am posted to Canadian Forces Ammunition Depot Angus last year. I lead troops to ensure ammunition are used, stored, and disposed safely and properly. Remembrance Day for me is about honoring the memory of all the military personnel who came before me. It is thanks to their heroism and selflessness that we live in a strong democratic country that guarantees our rights and freedoms. This year we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War by paying homage to those valiant Canadians who fought and fell to defend the freedom and prosperity of our allies so far from our shores. I want to tell you about the hardship our veterans suffered and their incredible courage because their decision to serve our country meant enormous sacrifice. In wartime, young Canadians leave their families, friends, communities, and our country for months and even years at a time to fight for freedom and for peace. They do so despite the very real threat of never coming home again. During the Second World War, more than 1 million young Canadians and Newfoundlanders, for Newfoundland and Labrador was not yet a province, put on the uniform of the Army, Navy, or Air Force and prepared to fight the enemy. Picture yourself walking for hours, carrying a heavy backpack, drenched in rain, covered in snow or sweating through extreme heat. You haven't bathed in weeks or eaten a meal that didn't come out of a can. You dig a deep hole in the ground, a foxhole, to catch a few hours' sleep, often interrupted by a duty watch, artillery bombardment, or enemy attack. You are a Canadian soldier. Feel the freezing wind and the salt spray of the North Atlantic as you stand watch for enemy submarines, airplanes trying to break the vital shipping supply line on which the Allies rely. You may be in knee-deep water that has flooded the lower decks of your ship, and you haven't seen land for weeks. You are a Canadian sailor. Now you're flying through fog, clouds, and rain in the dark of night without the benefit of radar. Enemy artillery shells rock your plane and test your courage. You don't know whether you'll make it back to the airfield or crash into enemy territory, but you have to continue to drop bombs on your target. You are a Canadian aviator. You are one of 1 million Canadians who wonder whether you'll ever see home again, whether you'll ever kiss your mother or hug your father again, or whether you'll ever grow old. 45,000 Canadians didn't get the chance to do those things. They never returned home from the Second World War. We also pay tribute on Remembrance Day to veterans of the Korean and Afghanistan wars. More than 500 Canadians lost their lives in Korea, and 158 Canadian Armed Forces members did not come back from Afghanistan. Many who did return carry the consequences of war with them. Haunting memories of their wartime experiences left many survivors with long-term psychological, emotional, or physical wounds. Undeterred by the horrors of conflict and war, generations of Canada's bravest and best have risked their lives for our freedom. They were determined to keep Canadians from harm, to defend our way of life, and to try to make the world a better place. That's something we must never forget. It is important that we recognize Canadian veterans for their unimaginable heroism and great sacrifice. Of course, military operations are not confined to foreign soil, nor are they limited to the past. Today, Canadian Armed Forces members continue to risk their own health and safety to protect others. While many continue to be deployed overseas on United Nations and NATO missions, others serve here at home. Some respond to natural disasters. Canadian Armed Forces personnel have dealt with devastating floods and forest fires and massive snowstorms across the country in recent years. Others have put their medical training to work helping to fight a pandemic. Still others carry out life-saving search and rescue missions by air and sea. The Canadian Armed Forces responds to about 1,000 search and rescue calls each year. Whatever and wherever the need, Canadians can count on us to keep them and our country safe, just as our veterans did. Steadfast service to our country is a common link that ties today's military members with those who came before us. Because we are all part of the Canadian family, and we are all in this together. Thank you.